I've come to Lorville in a very modern ship, the F-8C Executive, to show you my first ship, a very different ship than this one. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you to my long-term subscribers. So this is kind of, I guess it'd be overdue. I should have thought of this sooner. But Lorville is the only place that sells my first ship. And my actual first ship has long since been upgraded to an Apollo medevac as a CCU gamer. But here it is, the Aurora LX. 687K, give or take, UEC can be yours. And this is it sitting in the New Deal spot, but I had to use the kiosk in order to pick it up. You can't do a fast buy on this, although it's supposed to have an F key mount. Now, this ship has four small size 1 hardpoints for weapons. Particularly bulldog repeaters are usually what it comes with, but only two come on board. So I left it stock, and this was kind of in the spirit of my first ship and etc. etc. And one of the things I always found funny was the Aurora LN, which is supposed to be a superior Aurora, and it is, only because it comes with two more missiles. And it's just kind of silly to me. Instead of having two size 2 missiles, it has four size 2 missiles. So, okay, but the only other thing that's really like I guess an Aurora LX would be jealous of is the fact it already has two more CF-117 Bulldog repeaters, the size 1 energy repeater weapons. Anyway, the Aurora LX is not about combat. It was originally the deluxe Aurora, and this is before the LN even existed. The LN was added to be this. They realized it was getting the Auroras weren't doing too well in Arena Commander, and it was supposed to be a 5 or 10 USD upgrade, depending on which one you were coming from, to modernize the Aurora. Ironically, I never did that. Later on with the Medevac, when that first came out, I picked the CCU up for that. But the Aurora LX has always been near and dear in my heart. It sat in the hangar module. It always admired it. You can see the 3 SCU cargo area on the base, ready to accept boxes. It's always been something near and dear to me. It's a very raw ship. Its visibility is excellent. I'm going to cover that heavily in a few moments. But it also has thrusters that are easily obvious. It's also got missiles. You can see if you have them or not. And also, people looking at you can too, don't forget. But it's also a very responsive ship. The Aurora series is a great package, especially for a starter ship. One of the frustrations for me is people that are, for whatever reason or purpose, don't have like an Aurora CL, LN, or even this LX. They get like the ES, like the real base version of the Aurora, and it's a shame because the small little tiny upgrades are very nice. Now, what is the LX, and why was I so excited about it back in the day? Well, this is the one that had leather seats and leather trim. It was a very cheap thing. I was a broke college kid, and I was excited about the game, and I think it was 5 USD. It's a fun little thing. But more importantly, it made me feel like I was like tuning and modding my own ship well before that was possible. And being able to look at this in the hangar module with all its little bells and whistles, it's trimmed berth for your bed, and its premium leather seat, and its lining and such was very cool. It didn't look exactly like the interior of this one, but it was there. And the Aurora is still rough around the edges. One of the things I think a lot of people pick on it about is that the seat doesn't swivel. So when you hop in and out of the pilot seat, your character has to like awkwardly climb around. And the idea is that it's supposed to be a very basic ship. It was supposed to be every person's ship to be able to get into space. Kind of like the Zeus before it. It was supposed to open up space to more people. But this was like the workhorse. You had the Aurora is still a very modern ship, I would argue. It's very capable. I wouldn't take it into combat too often, although some people, I'm sure, will gladly post a video or two showing it having good fights or whatever. But why tie one hand behind your back? I mean, that's kind of always been my thought about the Auroras when it comes to combat. But for other needs like exploration, for box runs, that kind of stuff, just having fun in general and exploring the verse, it's not a bad ship at all. And honestly, uh, one of the things I would argue is that if you're one of those people that's like looking at getting into the game and you're curious about what you wanted to do and you want to keep obviously your intention small, a game package with the right kind of Aurora is a fun way to do it. You can always get the base Aurora and then just upgrade it for, once again, 5 USD or something on a CCU. And there you go. You got the Aurora of your choice. And then if you want to consider possibly getting another ship, so be it. But the point is, no matter what happens, you always have at least a good basic ship that has good visibility, has the ability to run boxes, although I wish it'd be more ideal to have a ramp ship like a Pisces, but that's just my opinion. And then you have the ability to have a bed for logging out in the back. Wow, I think I'm 6.5 minutes into this and I finally got to that. So it's a good little package, and it's like the most basic ship that you can get that still has all that. I mean, look at the visibility on this. I know some people are anti-strut. I know. Put down your pitchforks as you awkwardly climb out of this beautiful chair. What I wanted to bring up, though, is that if you are willing to tolerate those metal struts, those little tiny metal struts, there's a lot going on in this ship. And it has just enough of the basics to keep you going. And I would say that you can see the visibility again to the sides, trying to make it less claustrophobic and such. Nice little trim pieces on the sides and such. The attention to detail on this ship is really nice. RSI ships in general, I always feel like they had like that extra little touch. They had that extra spacing before other companies had their act together with their design language. I always felt like the RSI was very strong. It understood what it was. It understood what it wanted to be, and it's a ship that is well-rounded. And the Aurora series in general is no different. Now, once again, I go back to it's not a weaponized ship that's that heavily weaponed. You can see the 2 size 1 Bulldog repeaters, and it could fit 2 more on the sides, on the winglets, and then 2 size 2 missiles. But in general, if you're using it for a variety of different purposes, this ship will treat you fine. And you may grow out of it, and that's okay. You could absolutely roll around with an Aurora with your friends or your workmates, and then grind out, just in game, another ship, and say, okay, I've decided I want to do this or that. It's a wonderful ship for that capability. Now, am I biased that I prefer the Pisces over the Auroras? Of course I do. That's why I had to go buy this in the store, in game, to reminisce the early days. But I feel like this ship, if you treat it well and you don't put it into too much hot water, it'll get you home every time. And I just admire the amount of detail and work that went into this vessel. I think that the LN and the LX are the standouts to me. I'm not a big fan of the CL. I think you should just go towards more cargo-oriented ships by that point, but that's just my opinion. No, the RSI, even on the interior of the landing gear and the backlighting of the landing gear, you can see the pride in this vessel. You can see the thought that went into it and the care. And now, overall, I just gave it a lot of compliments, but there is a few things that I get annoyed with. First of all, the fancy seat. You never see it unless you're looking from the outside. You're either inhabiting the seat, and you don't see much, or if any of it, or you have to look at it from outside in bright lighting. And that is a downside. This is not the original seat. The seat I saw in the hangar module was different than this. It looked more like it had quadrants to it, for what it's worth, like small things. There's the other hard points, as you note. But overall, the biggest thing for me to pick on is the double doors. It is neat. In the past, like in the very early days, if you glitched out one of the doors, you could absolutely go into the other one. If you got your PTV stuck on the side of the vessel, You could still climb in and take a look. You can see the Robert Space Industries and then the little LN, uh, flight line styling of the chair, like the branding. But this is the LX as a reminder. We're talking about the LX. And there is small bits of trim on the flooring. There is small bits of trim on the side walls, and then also the trim, of course, in the bed area. But can it go to other places? How useful is this ship? And also, how maneuverable is it, both in Atmo and in space? Let's find out. So, I think a lot of people see the low price point on the Aurora and the fact that it's kind of like forgotten about, dare I say it? And many people, including myself, don't recommend it. A lot of veteran players don't really step up and go, "Oh, this is the type of ship to get." And it's near and dear to my heart only because as an OG backer, this was my first ship. It's not quite stat for other people. It doesn't have that sentimental value that this ship has for others. And it's not the same ship. It's been reworked and such, but it still has the spirit of the original. And as you see these maneuvers and such, which are about as daring as I would dare to do in something like this. It's not as maneuverable as a pure racing vessel or a space supremacy fighter. Something that is designed to get into position to do its job and stick there and grab corners and be able to go in straight lines at extreme acceleration. All these different things, like the Sabre Perry I recently covered. It's more for. Uh, it's more for a balance. You can see these arms on the back here where there's a pair of smaller thrusters that are auxiliary thrusters that kind of give it a good wide thruster allocation. And you can see the side ones activating on those little on the back of the ship as well. Then you can see the winglets have a good allocation. It's not meant for pure speed. It's not meant for pure maneuverability with turning and yaw and pitch. It's more of an all-arounder, and that's okay. But it can pick itself up pretty dang okay. You can see in nav mode here, I'm clearing a restricted area, and no problems. Now you try doing that in a bigger ship that doesn't have a lot of thrust going on. There's a lot of mass that's thrown around. This thing still benefits from being small. A lot of the criticisms of it tend to give it an advantage. It's rocking a bunch of size 1 modules. It doesn't have a big area inside of it that requires a bunch of space for services and such. You see it still has scanning capabilities. It still has some weaponry. It's kind of squeezing enough in there to really make the juice worth the squeeze, and not quite enough where it becomes a problem. Even the way it handles cargo is very useful. It's not a sealed off, pressurized cargo container area with a big door that has to open and close and such and add mass to the interior of the vessel. It's just shoved on the bottom of the ship. And once again, valid criticism. Some players will point out that there's basic services and the basic way the missiles kind of feel like the rack is kind of slapped on and the cargo containers are kind of slapped down the bottom there without even like a basic elevator system. It might rub people the wrong way. That's that's a fair argument, honestly. You can see there though that this thing has a good amount of distance it can do for quantum. So changing gears a little bit, to be fair, I know they're not the same topic, but the point is that it's a well-rounded ship, and its design is reflected in its capabilities. That's what I'm trying to get at. You can see here how it can go effortlessly across the whole system at least one way, and even from like Lorville to Microtech, and then it could come back without having to refuel its quantum tank. That's pretty impressive. Notice the spinning that is causing effects on the pilot because of its capabilities once you leave Atmo. It's a great little ship. But who would I recommend it to? I think people that are considering playing the game, and if you're looking at this video and you're going, hey, I'd love to be able to check out the game on a budget and have a good time, and I like exploring. I like the idea of being able to go do delivery missions and pick up some work, and then see if I'm in. Maybe dip my toe with some friends in combat, with like maybe pop in some pirates and doing some bounties. You'll do fine in this thing. Now, when you start talking about going solo for PvP or PvE, even, you might run into some trouble. But I've seen people pull things together from amazing places. I just don't feel it's going to be for you if that's like your main thing. Like you just love combat and that's what you're going for. There's far better options, even in this price range, or just a few USD more. You can note the RSI detail. I just love the small details on the Auroras. They put a little bit of work into them. And once again, the LX adds a tiny little bit more of the touch of the it feels unique. It may be a mass-produced vessel on sale in Lorville, but it feels unique. It feels like rare air, like an everyman ship that has that rarity to it. A lot like my Phoenix, so which is my daily driver most part. You can see I'm wearing my Odyssey suit. I thought it was very fitting to wear a uh, a freebie suit that I would be wearing as a newcomer in an Aurora LX. As the Aurora LX gently reminds me, it has a little bit of a grudge, but it's willing to take me back. That'll do it for tonight. Thank you to my long-term subscribers. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Hope you're having a great evening.